49ers, we just wrapped up the 49ers practice. It's actually their first practice post that preseason game. And, well, I think as we watch the guys on the field, you were making your rounds. You're a popular guy around these parts, Rand. But as we're watching the guys on the field, I mean, I think we got to talk about the defense.
Yeah, those guys were flying around, and it's what we talked about leading up to the practice. Salah's mentality, all gas, no brakes. Those guys were flying around. Khalil Davis was disruptive. You saw Fred Warner flying around, hitting people. He even got in a little skirmish. I don't know if you saw that. He got in a little skirmish at practice. But just overall, as a defense, those guys were flying around, high flying, and getting to the ball quick.
I saw a couple tip passes. I even saw Nick Bosa come up with an interception, so it's certainly a positive to see. But meanwhile, on the offensive side, we saw Brock make quite a few connections with Ricky Pearsall, last year's draft pick, but also I saw a lot of bursts from CMC.
I tell you what, the first thing that I noticed being out here at practice was how much his body's changed. Like, you're going to see a newly defined body. He's added some bulk, what that looks like to me. Can't confirm what the weight is now, but his lower body, he's filled out in the lower body. His upper, he was already a well-built guy. So he looks strong and looks really sturdy. And I think some of that has to do with the fact of how he returned off of that Super Bowl year. That was a long season for him, and then it was a shorter offseason and then right into the next season. And so for me, I just vaguely remember him saying he didn't know how quite ready he was. The guy dealt with injuries last year. He missed a lot of time, but I promise you, he put in some work this offseason, and he's changed his body.
Yeah, most certainly, and that's going to bode well for this 49ers team, especially when they're dealing with some injuries on the offensive side of the ball during practice. Jordan Watkins, their receiver that had that big pickup in their preseason game, suffering a high ankle sprain, so he'll likely miss a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, Kyle Shanahan revealing that Brandon Ayuk expect him back roughly around week 6 of the season. But what does this all mean for the Niners?
I mean, the young guys got to step up. Yeah. That's basically what it is. Demarcus Robinson, he made some plays down in the red zone area and some nice passes. Robbie Chosen, is out here. And so they have guys that have played in the league. But now it's time for these young guys to step up. The Ricky Pearsalls, you were drafted in the first round. You're getting an opportunity to be a featured guy in this offense. And like you said, Brock hit some nice connections. You've seen some deep crossing routes from Ricky Pearsall where he can catch the ball with space to run and, run after the catch, yak, whatever you want to call it, is a big deal here, and he showed that. So these young guys are going to have to step up.
Yeah, certainly going to rely on a lot of that young talent. The 49ers drafting a lot of that young talent, and they'll need to step into major roles if this team wants to try to hoist a Lombardi at this place in 6 months from now.
Kiana, Rand, thanks so much. Last season, the Niners, 6-11. The most losses by any NFL team in history, coming off losing the Super Bowl. San Francisco currently has the third best odds to win the NFC at plus 900. Year 4 for Brock Purdy by the Bay, but there won't be sneaking up on anyone anymore. Just signing a 5-year, $265 million extension in the offseason. Now it's about turning around that squad that won just 6 games coming off a Super Bowl appearance. For some insight into the 2025 49ers, we say hello to Tyler Sullivan. Tyler, how much pressure is on this version of Brock Purdy compared to the guy who was once the very last player selected in the draft?
Yeah, I think it's easy to say that there's a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy because he's now making $53 million per year. But I kind of feel like it's the same amount of pressure. It's not like he's playing in some middle market NFL team. He's playing for the San Francisco 49ers, a team that is firmly in a Super Bowl window when they're fully healthy. And so far, he has passed the test. He has been playing like a quarterback throughout the start of his career that was making some of the highest paid dollars in the NFL. So I think that there's natural pressure on him with the added money coming in. But we've already seen that this guy has been able to deal with a lot of pressure. I mean, he came into the league as Mr. Irrelevant, worked his way up the depth chart, playing in Super Bowls, playing in NFC Championship games, knocking on the door of a championship. So there's pressure on him, of course, especially now that there's a lot of questions around him at the skill positions and how he can elevate this roster. But overall, this is someone that not too long ago finished 4th in the MVP voting. So pretty confident in Purdy being able to rebound here.
Well, I'm happy you brought up what's around him because we know he's going to need help. Didn't have a whole lot of it last season because so many guys were injured. Deebo Samuel's now in D.C. So what do we make of the pass catchers who are in camp?
Yeah, the wide receiver room, to me, is the biggest X factor for the San Francisco 49ers. While some may be bullish on them rebounding in 2025, this is where rubber could meet the road in that endeavor, and you see it here. Brandon Ayuk possibly out until week 6, dealing with that ACL injury from a year ago. Juwan Jennings dealing with a calf injury. He was a breakout candidate for them a year ago. And you're really putting a lot on Ricky Pearsall, the first-round pick in 2024. I think that if I call the wide receiver room the X factor of the team, he's the X factor of the X factor, because he is someone that really needs to step up for Brock Purdy to really elevate this offense. Of course, there's other factors here. There's CMC, there's George Kittle, there's other outlets for Brock Purdy, but from a wide receiver perspective, it's Ricky Pearsall's time. We'll see what he does with the added opportunity.
All right, look, you kind of mentioned him. This is the question you have to ask. You hate to ask it. It's about Christian McCaffrey. He's a weapon when healthy. He wasn't healthy for but 4 games last season. His availability has been spotty for some time, but when he's healthy, oh goodness. How much confidence is there in McCaffrey to return to his 2023 dominant form?
I think you have to be a little bit wary, and it's for everything that you were just alluding to. This is a guy that is a literal cheat code in human form in the NFL when he's fully healthy, but it's that last little bit. It's when he's fully healthy. And one of the things that I've talked about over the course of this offseason, now leading into training camp, is this one little nugget about Christian McCaffrey that is just kind of still sticking in my craw. Going back to 2023, he led the NFL in touches, and we know what happened the following year. Last year, he was limited to 4 games. The last time he led the NFL in touches, in fact, the only other time he led the NFL in touches was back in 2019 when he was with the Carolina Panthers. The next 2 seasons total, he played 10 games, 3 and then 7. And so I hope that history is not repeating itself and where injuries kind of take a little bit for him to get back to his full form, and it takes him a few years. Because again, if he is the Christian McCaffrey that we hope he is, and reports out of camp are that he looks like Christian McCaffrey, that's always a good sign. And if so, this offense has a tremendously high ceiling. But if he's injured, you saw what happened last year, they will struggle.
All right, so the offense, if healthy, can do some things. The Niners' defense was historically bad last season. It almost gets forgotten. What kind of effect do you think Robert Saleh is going to have in his return to the Niners?
Yeah, I think it should be not a night and day change, but certainly an improvement. In one of the early returns that I noticed from them was over this weekend in the preseason. Again, take preseason with a grain of salt, but you have the twos kind of going out for the San Francisco 49ers in that preseason game, and they were going up against the Denver Bronco ones. And I think people might look at the box score and say, wait a minute, they put up 30 points. They let up 30 points. How can you feel confident about them? But when it was Bo Nix, when it was the starters for the Denver Broncos in those 3 series, they forced a punt, let up a field goal, and also recorded a safety. So without even counting the offense, they were only down by 1 point, defense putting up points. So they invested heavily at the NFL draft on the defensive side of the ball. Robert Saleh may not have worked out as a head coach, but is a very good defensive mind. When he was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers his final 2 years, they were top 5 defense in total yards allowed. They were the New York Jets were one of the better defenses in the NFL under Saleh when he was the head coach there as well, and he was really entrenched in the defensive side of the ball. So I think that from a coaching standpoint, from a young talent standpoint, this team should be better on that side of the ball.
There's certainly optimism around the 49ers. The odds makers have set the total at 10.5 wins for them in 2025. You see them going over or under that number?
I lean over, and so there's a couple of things here. One, I do think that I would imagine that this team has positive injury regression, right? You would think that they can't have another season as bad as it was in 2024. So if they can get Brandon Ayuk back in week 6, well, that certainly helps them elevate that wide receiver room. Obviously, we hope that Christian McCaffrey, like we were talking about, stays healthy. But to me, the other thing here, why I lean over, is because of the schedule. It's by far the easiest in the NFL. The caveat here is I think they need to start out hot out of the gate over the first month of the year. Back-to-back road games to begin the year, Seattle Seahawks, then the New Orleans Saints. I think that despite those being on the road, both of those are winnable games. Then you get back-to-back home games against the Cardinals and Jaguars. I feel like you should go 3-1, if not 4-0. After that, it does get a little bit difficult in the month of October. You're talking about the Los Angeles Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, two playoff teams, playoff caliber teams, arguably Super Bowl caliber teams. That could get a little hairy there over the second month of the year in October, but really where they could go on a run is right before their bye in week 14. I think they could win their final 6 games. So if I feel like they can go 4-0 in the first month and then go 6-0 down the stretch because of their poor opponents, well, you got 10 wins right there, and we're not even talking about that middle where, again, this is a team, when healthy, is as talented as any.
Yeah. It can't possibly get worse than the injury situation from last year. I'll knock on the desk for that one. Health for all. Tyler Sullivan, thank you so much. The 49ers last season, they just weren't great. They won 6 games overall, and they won 1 game in the division a year ago. That's it. In the NFC West, 1 win for the Niners. A lot of people expect them to do better in 2025. We shall see.